Welcome to Empire Rugby League, the Western Front edition, the only podcast where we talk about everything local WA Rugby League. Joining me as usual, I've got Beatrix on my left. Mate, how are you?
Good, mate. Good to see you back.
Yeah, thanks, mate. Always good to be back. On my right, Morgz. How are you, mate?
Yeah, Sweeney, not too bad, not too bad.
We've got heaps to go through today, so we're just going to run through quickly with our results from the weekend, and then we're going to jump straight into some really interesting stuff about the CAS tournament and the Bears. So I'll kick it off with our Women's League tag. So we had Ellenbrook with the bye. Joondalup and Alkimos. It was Alkimos 22 to Joondalup 10. South Perth were 26 over Kwinana 0. Willagee 14 over North Beach 6. And unfortunately in the Mandurah and Fremantle game, Mandurah had to forfeit due to lack of numbers.
Yep. And then third grade, we had South Perth 52, Kwinana 12. We had Alkimos getting up 24-16 over Rockingham. Kalamunda 34 over North Beach 18. Fremantle 24 over Mandurah 22. And Ellenbrook and Willagee had the bye.
And I'll go through the Val Murphy results. It was a full round bye. So
good work, Beatrix.
Yes.
Good work. And then moving on to women's premiership, where there were games, we had Joondalup 10 going down to Ellenbrook 18 in the live stream game, and Willagee 64 over Kalamunda 6. Fremantle had the bye.
So that Joondalup Ellenbrook game, that was the live stream game. So that was a Pathways game for the week. What did you boys make of that?
I didn't get to see any of this one, but I think
started strong.
Yep.
They looked like they were the better team, and a few silly errors and opened the door. And Ellenbrook just too good and much fitter. I think just got them over the line at the end. Especially they looked surprisingly good considering they had so many players out for rep duties.
Rep duties, yeah.
Good to see that depth. That depth.
Yeah, that depth. The depth is still there despite the missing players for CAS duties. Willagee just continuing to roll on the points. Kalamunda's still struggling, but I don't think
But they were up 6-0, so it's a positive sign.
That is pretty good, and they're continuing to get better, so that's really good. Okay, with our men's premiership, we had South Perth 54 over Joondalup, North Beach 42 over Willagee, and Fremantle 30 over Rockingham's 18. Lads, men's premiership also missing players due to state selection. What do you think? These still indicative of the scores that we would expect, regardless of people missing?
I think so, yeah. Yeah, you had South Perth. Still had a lot of their spine together. So that was sort of the result I expected in that game. North Beach, they still had a lot of class as well. Bit closer than I thought it was going to be in that game, given how many Willagee had out. And Rockingham, with all the debutants they had and the next wave of young talent coming through, I thought they put up a pretty good fight to only go down by 12 points to 3.
Yeah, I think that's it. We sort of talked about last week who was missing, like from CAS in terms of players in squads. Obviously, Joondalup and Rockingham didn't have the senior players missing from CAS as much, but they had a lot of those core under-18 boys away with the under-18s CAS squad camp. So sort of evened out, and yeah, I think they were probably the results you'd expect if everyone was fully fit and firing.
It's CAST now, boys.
CAST, yeah. CAST.
What does the T stand for? Can
Territories. States and territories.
States and territories.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Yeah.
Common sense.
So
I didn't figure that one out.
No, neither did I.
In the politically correct world that we live in, you've got to include the territories.
So we won't go into the debate whether the Northern Territory should be a state. We'll leave that for someone else.
Yeah, that's
we'll put that behind
another
table.
referendum. Yeah. Just quickly on that, I'm really impressed with Rockingham's work. Having brought through those new debutants and the younger players again, seemed more than equal to what they were doing against Fremantle, who were missing a couple of key players as well. I'm very happy to see Rockingham is starting to make some numbers up.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's good. And like I think it was talked about in the past, it's good for their future. If they can hold those boys together, hard times create good times.
Yeah, that's right. I know we've got a lot to get through, but again, seeing Rockingham start to put points on the board, start figuring out their spine, figuring out their systems, holding these lads together over the next 2 years, 3 years, and I genuinely think Rockingham will be back to being a powerhouse within the premiership.
It's good to see there's some different faces there each week too. Obviously, it's a rebuilding year for Rockingham, and you don't want them young guys getting beat up every week in first grade. So it's good to see a different crop of guys coming through. Maybe whatever injuries or just resting the younger guys that have been there at the start of the year, but bring through some other guys from experience, and it's only going to pay off in the end.
Well, that's it. Expose different players, because it's sometimes you might look at someone in reserves and think, oh, maybe they're not cut for first grade, but they get that jersey on and a different player comes out. You see another side of the boys, and you see what you've got there to work with in the future.
Yeah, that's right. Awesome. Thanks, lads. Cool. So now we're going to go on to the cast tournament. We'll quickly run through the results. Beatrix, you want to run through the men's results for us, mate?
Men's results, game 1, WA had a solid victory, 36-6 over NT. I thought that was going to be a closer scoreline, but it wasn't. Game 2, WA 52 over South Australia 4. And game 3, basically the grand final, WA come from behind in the last 10 minutes or so and got up 16 points to 8 over Victoria.
Yeah, so I mean, I've seen a few reels, a few highlights. Obviously, unfortunately, the games were behind a paywall. It's disappointing, but it is what it is. But yeah, I mean, I think WA back on top where they belong, if we're biased, and we are. But yeah, I agree with Beatrix. I think that NT result, the NTs look good in the last couple of years, so maybe a bit of a disappointing result for the NT. But hey, WA got the win, 3 from 3, bring home the trophy.
I love seeing these scores because it's WA putting on points and defending their line incredibly well. I've got no doubt the NT were a strong side. I know a couple of the lads that were in that side, so that's that they've got some talent up there, and they have for years. Victoria, the reigning premiers. I didn't actually see any of the highlights, and again, it was behind a paywall, so watching the games over the weekend were nigh on impossible without jumping through that. But yeah. Something that I think we've chatted about, a few people we've seen talking about, was maybe the option of having this men's state team take on maybe a New South Wales combined team or a Queensland combined team. I mean, what do you reckon that would look like? If that was something we could put together, what do you think that would look like?
Well, it's definitely something you could do. Over the weekend, the Penrith juniors played against the Cronulla juniors. There was 2 combined teams of all their A-grade squads. They played for the Luke Lewis Shield. So obviously there's a bit of sort of rep footy for the A-grade level over in the eastern states. So, I mean, if you could combine that together and then we could organise something where, I don't know if you do it, whoever wins the CAS tournament goes over and plays a team like that, or if you somehow involve a team like that in the CAS tournament. But either way, something like that it'll be good to sort of test where we're actually really at, because it's all good and well. Like Victoria, they would have some exposure to an NRL system somewhere with the Storm being over there, but to what level, not too sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's it. It's probably, from the little bit of footy I sort of, see over there and that, whether it was a Rod Massey Cup, which is the 3rd grade, sort of below the NRL, might be a step too far, but you potentially got your regional comps, whether it's say Newcastle or a Canberra or a Wollongong.
Yeah,
those regional areas are like your Peter McDonald Shield, I think it is. It's the old group 10-11. You've got heaps of different areas, so it's country rep teams.
Yep.
And those teams in areas like that have played Queensland country rep teams in the past. So I think those sorts of grades, that's where you see where WA's at, and that's.
Yeah.
I think that'd be great.
I think you're bang on. I think the Ron Massey's probably a level above where we're at over here. I've seen a few clips of that competition this year, and that's actually a really, really strong competition.
There's a lot of ex-NRL players floating around in those games.
Yeah, but in saying that, like I said, that Penrith versus Cronulla for Luke Lewis Shield, Andrew Fafita was playing in that game, so
it's interesting because he's been playing in the Central Coast. So that's
so I think he might have just popped down for a.
Just come down for a run, transfer for the week or something.
Put the boots on. I think we were chatting to John on our special podcast, and he was talking about the level of our stateside when they played the Community Lions last year, and how that level is sort of a semi-pro, sort of half amateur. So I'd still like to see them go and play. Now, just sort of correct my dumbness here, but was the CAST tournaments, previously CAST tournament, was that about selecting a team from that group, from the 4 states, to then take on New South Wales and Queensland back in the day?
Every now and then it would be New South Wales. I remember when I played, we played New South Wales country. Or WA played New South Wales country.
Yeah.
But usually you'd pick in the cast team, or now cast, they would pick a team and they'd either go to like Fiji, Samoa, Tonga or something like that. They'd always tour at the end of the year.
Yeah.
And go away there. So that's what it used to be.
And that cast team, whatever, played England in the warm-up game for the World Cup, was it 2017, something like that?
Yeah,
so, I mean, that
right,
was, and that was here, that was at NIB, HBF, Perth's rectangular stadium, no sponsors here. But that, that was a game, like obviously England preparing for the World Cup, but, you're sitting there watching it, was...
The first 20 minutes.
The boys looked good, and then obviously England coming to get in it, it's England. And
Yeah.
I'm sure while we're talking about that game, it would be remiss of me not to mention Ben Taylor's intercept. I'm sure he's a listener of the podcast, and I don't know if he's told anyone the story yet, but I'm sure if you ask him, he'll tell you.
Be 140 metre try now, wouldn't it? No, I do remember that now you say it. That was a beautiful play.
Reach out, Ben, let us know.
Move on to the women's?
Yeah, we'll move on to the women's. Beatrix, again, if you want to run through the results for us, mate.
Game 1 for the women's, they started off strongly against NT 26-6. Game 2, they had a big victory over SA 60-0, and then wrapping things up at the end of the tournament over Victoria, it was 20 points to 4.
And I think it's the same sentiment again. 3 wins from 3 starts. What more can you ask? 2 solid wins against probably, the NT and Victoria, who are those more competitive teams. But then when you come up against South Australia, that, with all due respect to South Australians, are probably the weakest of the 4, you put them to the sword.
Yep.
That's what you expect. It's what we got. Can't complain.
No,
you bring home the trophy. Hopefully you put a few of those girls, some of the ones we've spoken about, in the shop window, and with the NRLW expanding, and sort of New South Wales, Queensland second-tier comps expanding as well. Hopefully that's a pathway for those girls to get a step in the door, and they come back here when the Bears get an NRLW team and bring home that trophy.
I've got no doubt that there would have been scouts or teams and having people there to watch this particular championship, as it's the first time it's been run in a couple of years as well.
I think to pick a team or something like that to play New South Wales or Queensland would probably be a bit easier to do at this level. They've got the Harvey Norman Women's Premiership over there, which is sort of a lower level, and they've got the Intrust Cup for the women's.
Yeah, so you've got state-based equivalent.
So you've got that sort of lower level, smaller talent pool at the moment, because the women's game is just really starting to take off now. But it'd be a lot easier to make that a possibility against the New South Wales or Queensland team to test where we're really at, I think. But I'll throw another one out there. Would we like to see a more regular fixture, maybe a 3-game series through the year of WA versus NT?
Yeah, I mean, if it's something, and I guess the biggest challenge in that is going to be player availability with it being the amateur game. But if you can sort of overcome those barriers, play one in Perth, play one in Darwin, play one in Karratha, which is close enough to halfway. Yeah. Support the local Pilbara game. Like imagine that, get the Karratha Kangaroos, our favourite Pilbara team, getting them playing a game up there, and then have the women run out. WA versus NT. Yeah. It's the closest drive from Katherine or Darwin as it is from Perth, and
create a bit of rivalry, because I'd like to think that with the Bears coming in, that now NT would sort of feed into the Bears, so create a little sub rivalry underneath that banner as well, promote the game in other areas.
I'd love to see something like that. I think that'd be an incredible initiative, and the rivalry, the culture, it would add another element of pride to put on the jumper. To then if we're kicking NT's ass, the NT boys will look. We need to bring some pride back to our own jumper. So it creates another level of buy-in, and with that, the rising tide lifts all ships analogy. I mean, the players will start to get better. Everybody will start to raise their level, and hopefully that has the knock-on effect down to clubs and juniors. And what we always talk about is this the buy-in from everybody in the community. So.
And it's that exposure to our communities in Perth to that level of rugby league. Because, like we talked about, the cast hasn't come to Perth in over a decade. So when do we get to see a WA team play, be it men's or women's? So having a more regular series, whether it was, once every, sort of beginning of the year, mid-season, after grand final, whatever it looked like, you could come up with any number of ideas there. But let's have the WA team play regularly in WA.
Yeah,
Like,
and
it's
however
basically
that
an away team, and that sucks.
yeah. The community lines, so that sort of initiative in Great Britain there happened with the players being chosen from a few squads in the Northern Conference League, NCL I believe it is. They all fundraised themselves. They all got their money together and took their time off work to come over and play that tournament. Yeah. Then they played 2 games against the state teams. One was the Chairman's 13.
Yeah, Chairman's, which was sort of like a WAB kind of thing, or A, or whatever you want to call it.
Then the state team, and then they went on to play in our Harmony Cup here as well, the Harmony Cup competition, which is another amazing initiative for us. Yeah. So seeing something like that as well, and I'd love to even have the boys go over to England and do the same thing. You know, at some stage, seeing these players get the opportunity to do those kinds and make those kind of memories and experiences.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see where that ends with the Bears coming in. What sort of doors are going to be open, or what direction they're going to head in, and where's the focus going to be? Yeah. Because sort of, I don't know, like what you boys think about the coverage and stuff like that, but it sort of seems like the CAS is starting to get pushed aside. It's something that the NRL doesn't really want to deal with anymore, and it just seems like it's sort of fading away.
Well, that's it. Like last year, it was on YouTube and it was on whoever. It was on the
NRL.
It was NRL. That was. I just remember watching it. Where this year it's behind paywall, and I know I've heard some people saying, you know, putting that on the local governing body, and that's rubbish. It's nothing to do with them. It's how they're controlling. And I think it's important to note that they put the games on the governing body put their games on the WA games on their YouTube channel as soon as they could. Yeah. So that's a credit to the governing body. But yeah, the fact that as WA fans we couldn't watch those games live, the family, the loved ones of those players couldn't watch them play for their state live. Yeah, it sucks.
Yeah, it's definitely on the nose. With you talking about maybe it's being pushed to the side, we've spoken about other competitions becoming to the forefront. Is it the NRL just don't want to take an axe to something in fear of upsetting people? Are they slowly moving to a new format for how they want these championships to run and how they want the ability to pick players? What do you think what's holding it back, or what's not allowing it to move forward, or how are they changing it?
I mean, I think we're getting the same treatment as country rugby league is getting across New South Wales and Queensland. It's seen as irrelevant. It's not the money maker from the head up. The NRL makes the money. Everyone else is just there for the ride, and the money goes elsewhere. Like, you don't have to talk to people in outback Queensland or regional New South Wales and get their views of what is happening to the game in those areas, and that's league heartland. Yeah. If people feel the game is being treated poorly there, what do we expect in areas where the game is the fourth sport, regardless of whether we're getting a team in 2 years' time?
Yeah, if it's not producing dollars, and what do they want with it? You know.
Well, that's it.
Right.
Especially with Millennials
now. So.
Yeah.
It is what it is. Boys, any feedback from our posts about the squad announcements?
We've had some differing. It's been a bit of a polarising opinion for us. So, I mean, for those that may not have seen and that are listening, we had our opinions on the way the squads were announced in the lead up to the CAS tournaments. Personally, what I was quoted on to say about enjoying the fact that these players are having a good time. But what I didn't see was a team that looked ready to go into battle, essentially, and that maybe our opponents, the other states, would see that as a way of us not being serious about what we're doing. Happy to be proven wrong with those results. They absolutely went in to do what they needed to do, which was incredible work. But yeah, I guess maybe it came down to a level of professionalism. Morgz?
I mean, I think, you know, it's probably important to note we're all men that are getting towards middle age. You know, we're not as young as we'd like to say we are. I would prefer a more serious, you know, I love the arms crossed, look like you're about to knock someone's block off photo. You know, but yeah, I guess maybe they were targeted a younger demographic, and it's fair to say that. We're not that younger demographic. If it worked, if it got the engagement, awesome. It's just, I still think I'd love the more serious photo. Then maybe seeing the light-hearted photos at the end as part of like a celebration when we brought home the trophy. That said, if you look at the 4 governing bodies that had teams at the cast, there's only one that I can tell you who their players were, only one that had individual photos, and it was WA, so we might not love it, but hey, shredded all over the other three states and territories in terms of how they promoted it, how they shared their squads. So I will give that credit to the governing body, because if I was a Victorian fan or not WA fan, I am a WA fan. If I was an NT fan, South Australian fan, would I even know who's playing for my team? I wouldn't, because those squads weren't publicly available. I think South Australia had it with nothing else. The NT had nothing. Victoria shared a photo. If I don't know who those blokes' faces are, I don't know. So at least we know who played for WA.
Yeah, well, for me, squad announcement is business. Yeah, you got to look the part. You're representing the state. If you want to, I heard a lot of people go, "Oh, it was great to see personality of the players." That's fine. So show the personality of the players, but let's take them photos a week earlier, and let's use these photos of them showing their personality to promote the game. Have a little countdown. Have someone holding up 2 fingers. 2 days to go until the cash tournament.
Yep.
You know, all that sort of stuff. Show their personality in different ways and also promote the game through. So I'm all for showing personality, having a bit of fun, keeping it lighthearted and all that sort of stuff. But squad announcement, like I said, business.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's it. Like I said, have the serious photos when it's time to roll.
Yeah.
Whether it's the fun photos before, when you're in the build-up leading in that week before, or when you've got it out, have released a second one of photos that are those fun photos of, the flex or the tongue out or the silent, whatever I don't even know. Clearly, I don't. Clearly, if you see my personal Facebook page profile, it's not. I'm not an Instagram fan. I'm not a social media.
I'm fairly certain that your profile pic is you just with your arms crossed.
It is. It absolutely is. And if you see the photo that my club, the Titans, released, my profile, arms crossed, trying to look like I'm a tough man, not a 5'1" man.
And probably the biggest point too, boys, is don't release the squads after they've flown out.
Yeah.
Show them the respect. Get the things done earlier, and bloody do it the week before. Do it on the Monday. Do it on the weekend.
Yeah, and look, again, I like the idea of having the personalities in the lead up, and then before they fly out, bang, that's the arms crossed. That's we're here.
Yeah.
Now we mean business. But again, I just want to quickly touch on Morgan's point about the level of coverage the government body put out. That it absolutely chopped everything. They were up to the minute updates. They were talking about what was going on. We knew scores, we knew results, we knew what was happening. So that's a big shout out to them for keeping all of us that weren't able to see and watch informed over the whole weekend.
But in saying that, that's why we had that 9-10 year dynasty, is because we hold ourselves to a higher standard in WA, and that's why we're better than everybody. So when we're making these decisions and we're putting these things out, let's just remember that.
Yeah, we're the third rugby league state in Australia. We're not an AFL state.
Exactly.
Awesome. Plenty to talk about there. If you like what we're saying, please hit us up in the comments.
Yeah, and that's it. If you disagree with us, if you think we're dribbling, tell us, because we know we're all men of 35, 34. Sweeney's about 50. But that's it. So, if you're a young 19-year-old out there listening and playing, that was, tell us. Did you love it? Did you love the humour? Because, hey, we could be wrong. We've been wrong before. We'll be wrong again.
I don't know. I don't think I'm ever wrong. Okay, we'll jump to...
You're a South supporter, Sweeney.
Let's get back to
we're due.
Back in, boys.
Cool. So we're going to jump through to our junior comp game results.
And you've got 13 boys, Sweeney?
I do. So our under 13 boys, we had Kalamunda over Willagee 14-0. Kwinana 26 to Joondalup's 26 as well, so a draw there. Rockingham was 26 to Ellenbrook's 14. And Fremantle with the bye.
Just on that 13s game, the Kwinana versus Joondalup game with the 13s. Not sure what happened, if there was a bit of confusion or lack of communication, but there was no referee available or at the ground for that game. So the two teams come to an agreement that a certain person would referee half a game and half a game. So I'm not sure how that works. If anyone that knows anything can give us some clarification about whether that's going to count, or if you needed a proper registered referee for the game to be a result. So if you could reach out and let us know about that would be great. But we'll move on to the under 14s boys. South Perth 52 over Joondalup 0, Kalamunda 36 over Serpentine 0, Ellenbrook 30 over Rockingham 10. Kwinana Titans over Alkimos 58-6, and Fremantle 42 over North Beach 10.
And then in the under 14s girls, we had Willagee 32 over Joondalup 26, Ellenbrook 42 over Kwinana 18, and Freo had the bye for the girls.
And then under 15s boys, we had Kalamunda 20 over Willagee 0, Rockingham 44 over Ellenbrook 0, and Fremantle 40 over Joondalup 6, with Alkimos getting the bye.
And under 17s boys, we had Rockingham 38 over Ellenbrook 16, Alkimos 48 over Kwinana 0, and Fremantle 32 over Joondalup 18. So moving on, unless there's anything to chat about for those?
No.
All good.
Nah, cool. Moving on now, we're going to be talking about the Perth Bears. First cab off the rank, Mal Meninga has been confirmed, fully confirmed as coach. Boys, what are your thoughts on this?
I mean, my thoughts when I first heard it was someone that hasn't coached the NRL since, 98, 99. Obviously done well with the Queensland coach, but I think I could have coached that team to the eight wins in a row, given how bad New South Wales was for that period. Has done well for the Kangaroos. So I wasn't a fan, but the more I think about it, I think a figurehead coach that people know. WA people have heard of Mal Meninga. Yep. They have not heard of Brad Arthur, with all due respect to Mr. Arthur. But, and we're talking about that, people I know, including my better half, talking about Mal Meninga. Now, she's grown to know rugby league, knowing me, but, didn't have a clue about it before. Knows Mal Meninga. My boss at work, not a rugby league fan, knows Mal Meninga. Yep. So, you're bringing in someone that people have heard of, that people know and identify with rugby league. And I think that's what it does. It gets people talking because they know who the coach is. So if there's a good assistant framework under, with the idea that in 2-3 years' time, that as assistants come through and take over, I think that is actually the best approach. I think it's better than just bringing in someone that doesn't have a profile, that isn't known outside diehard rugby league fans. And I've come around. It's still a Queenslander and it still hurts, but hey, Meninga for the Bears, and let's see what that brings.
Well, I just try and block it out. The fact that he's a Queenslander, I just think I just see the big Canberra Milk logo
he's a Canberran.
And the Australian jersey. That's all I see.
He's a Canberran.
Big figurehead, like you said. Everyone knows who he is. He's a big rugby league personality, an immortal as well.
Yep.
I think put a good team around him, and I think that's the right decision.
Yeah, look, I think, again, it's Mal Meninga, it's a name, and people are going to want to attach themselves to that as fans that are maybe they're not fully sold on the game, or maybe not fully sold on what's happening here. So if you've got those outliers, they know what's going on. It'll be much easier for them to fall into a support as a fan if they know that someone there they know is a former Kangaroo and a Kangaroo coach and an immortal, because people will talk about it. The other thing I like too is he's got the Canberra connection, which means he's got the UK connection. We've all spoke about the fact that Poms love Perth. I think half of Perth is Poms. So bringing in new Super League talent as well is something I kind of agree with. Especially, we've got the grades now. I think, I talk about the community lines often. Chris Siddons, who plays for Rockingham Sharks, played for the community lines, and he's come across to play for Sharkies. So, having those pathways open here is really good. Assistant framework as well, incredible, as long as there's someone there to do it.
So on that, have we heard it? Has there been? I've heard lots of names thrown around. I've heard Josh Hannay, Matt King, whoever you guys heard. Because I've heard of plenty of ex-players, but is there anyone else in the pipework that might be being talked about that we've heard about? Yeah,
personally, I think I've heard Max King. Sorry, not Max King.
Max King is a good player, probably not a coach yet.
Not just yet. Jeez, my mind's on the game this weekend, isn't it?
He's here in the state next week.
Yeah. I've just had a complete blank. Matt King, sorry.
Former New South Wales great.
And South Sydney player.
Yeah.
Yes. Matt King. He did some work at Southpeth.
And he's gone to the Roosters and stuff like that.
At the Roosters as well.
I think that's it. There's been plenty of, former NRL players have been talked about. One that I've heard talked about recently has been in the media is Ben Garner, the current Samoa coach, I believe.
Yep.
So I think if I look at that, follows a similar track to the Dolphins, bring in a well-known coach like the Dolphins did with Bennett, couple years, and then the Tongan coach took over, Christian Wolf. Maybe a similar process here, do we think?
Yeah, I suppose this idea of maybe blooding an international coach that's had some other... Because Gardner is currently at Penrith as well, is that correct?
Yeah.
So, they've had that sort of touchstone with the NRL or club coaching. They've coached at a higher level in terms of international. So dealing with stars and personalities and that level as well as like club personalities. So man managing, working those kind of things out as well. Because it's not just the strategies and tactics, it's about how you boys work together. So, yeah, allowing that to come through, I think that's going to be...
And that's it. And like we talk about it being ex-players, but there's plenty of coaches in the NRL now that had limited to no NRL careers that make better coaches than players we've seen that have had amazing NRL careers. So it's not a prerequisite to be a good player, to be a good coach.
Yeah.
I mean, they're all probably better players than I am, but that's another story. But one thing I think, Mao as well has talked about signing players, and one name that's been mentioned is West Tigers number 9, Api Coruscant, ex-New South Wales premiership winner, towards the end of his career. But
also played at South.
and Manly as well, but we won't talk about that.
We won't talk about that, definitely don't talk about
I mean, he hasn't been to the Bulldogs yet, so maybe an interim year at the Bulldogs next year. Or
And Panthers.
Yeah, he was Panthers. The premiership winner in Panthers, because he wasn't a
that's
premiership
right,
winner at South, was he?
Yeah, 14.
Was he there in 14?
Isaac Luke was out suspended.
Yeah, and that's...
I put that
too.
game out the back of my head. That was a bad game.
But yeah, I think signing Appy is a good idea. I know he's coming to the tail end if he's not already in the tail end of his career as a first grader. But similar to how they worked at the Dolphins, signing a name, signing someone with a level head that can lead from the front. He's a workhorse. Does it matter so much about some of the intricacies of his game now? Maybe not, because what he'll be able to do is lift the people around him. Again, it's a name for supporters to latch onto and get involved with. Yeah,
I mean, he's a leader. He's played a bit of junior footy for the Bears in North Sydney, coming through the junior ranks. Yeah, why not?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
I mean, what else is out there at the moment?
Well, that's probably a fair question.
Well, it's got November 1.
I think I'm a bit more on the fence with this one. Like, good player, but, he's 33, 34 now. He had another 12 months on, 2 years. If that puts him at 36 by the end of that contract, that's getting on a bit. Not too many players kicking on the end. So,
not playing.
But then, do you want to sign someone who's going to be your captain for 1 year? Probably not. So I don't know.
It depends. What connections does he have? What sort of relationships does he have with other players?
Yeah.
He's got that Fiji connection. Is he going to bring anyone from there? Yeah. That's a whole untapped market of Pacifica as well.
Yeah,
through the Fiji market.
I mean, that's it.
All that sort of stuff too.
Another aspect to look at as well is that players moving to Western Australia, it's not an hour flight between Sydney and Melbourne or anything like that. You're moving your family here a few hours away from anywhere else. We're the most isolated city in the world. Can players deal with that? Can players' families deal with that as well? So, is Appy ready to uproot his family and bring them over here for a number of years and add to his undoubtedly large property portfolio?
Yeah, I mean, and I think that's always going to be the thing with WA teams.
Yep.
Who wants to come over here? And for some people, the opportunity might be the right opportunity as a footy perspective, but from a life perspective, it's not.
It may be
but
not.
It's just what we've got to deal with. It is a factor, but I mean...
Boys, before we move on from the Bears, given the confusion with the announcement of the team being called the Perth Bears, with another social group we have in Western Australia of Bears, do you think it's a great marketing ploy by the NRL to employ a big, hairy man as our leader? In Malmaninga.
Yes.
Oh, I thought you were talking about. Talking about yourself, there, Beatrix. Okay, where are you going?
That's
with
where the modelling's going.
That's
it.
I'm thinking Beatrix on the sideline in like a bear suit or something.
Doesn't need a bear suit.
Well, it's
doesn't need a
Perth
bear suit.
Bears,
It's just got
throw a little 2-for-1 membership around there.
That was a really funny story. Look, the last sort of thing I kind of want to touch on with this before we do move on is, what's the other hype around it? What other things are we looking at here? So I'm interested to know how the Centre of Excellence is going to go, how that looks. We've got 18 months to 2 years, I think, before we're fielding a team.
Correct.
Do we know anything about have we broken ground on any of that?
I just want to know what the junior pathway, what's that 35 million for junior pathways? Where's that actually
How's
going?
that look? Yeah.
How much of that's actually going to be spent in Perth?
Does this will it go through to the school-based competition? Because there's been a lot of talk about that being.
Who knows? But
I think
Yeah.
that's it, and I think we can speculate all we want on that, but I mean that's going to be stuff that comes in time, and there's honestly, why bother speculating? Because there's 100 different things we could come up with.
True.
Next Wednesday at 4:00, the NRL is going to have a great opportunity to see where their junior talent is actually at in that Rise game. They might get a bit of a shock and realise that a good chunk of this 35 million is going to go into pathways in Western Australia.
Yeah.
If we're serious about having natural talent come through.
And I think the 2 Origin games that have been held in Perth, I think in the top 5 or 6 the biggest crowds at Optus.
Yep.
Now we've got a team. There was talk at the double header when it looked like we weren't going to have a team that affecting the crowd negatively. So now let's show them positively. Let's make it the biggest damn crowd at Optus, ever. Like the biggest sporting crowd ever at Optus. Like if you haven't got a ticket, get yourself a ticket. Because frankly, even sitting up in the rafters, I'll take it. That's where I am. It's Origin. New South Wales is going to win 40-0, easy as.
Just
get there.
Be loud, support rugby league.
Sell out Optus Stadium and then sell out HBF on Saturday for the Dolphins Knights. We've got 2 opportunities in the next week and a half to show why we've got a team. Don't let it down. Don't let it go to waste. But juniors, sweet.
Speaking of juniors,
here we go. Cool. So we'll run through our preview. 15th of June, under 13s. We will have Joondalup versus Fremantle at Admiral Park. We'll have Ellenbrook versus Kwinana at Charlotte's Vineyard Pavilion. Rockingham versus Willagee at Franklin Offshore Stadium. And Kalamunda have the bye.
And then moving to under 14s, boys. Joondalup versus Freo at Admiral. Ellenbrook versus Kwinana at Charlotte's Vineyard Pavilion. Alkimos versus Serpentine at Heath Park Sports Ground, and that's in Serpentine. Rockingham South Perth at Franklin Offshore Stadium. And North Beach versus Kalamunda at Blue Force Park.
Under 14s girls, Joondalup versus Fremantle at Admiral Park, and Ellenbrook versus Kwinana at, how did you pronounce that again, Morgz?
Shallots.
At Charlotte's Vineyard.
Say 5 times fast.
And then, so under 15s, boys, we have Joondalup versus Fremantle at Admiral Park, Alkimos versus Willagee at Heath Park, and Rockingham versus Kalamunda at Franklin Offshore Stadium with Ellenbrook on the bye.
Yep, sorry, boys.
Under 17s, boys.
Under 17s.
You got it there, Sweeney?
I do. We have on Sunday the 1st.
Yes.
Rockingham. Oops, sorry.
And I've got it here. We'll go
thanks,
Ellenbrook
sorry,
versus Kwinana at Charlotte's Vineyard Pavilion. We'll get there. We'll get there eventually, ladies and gentlemen. Alkimos versus Fremantle at Heath Park and Rockingham versus Joondalup at Franklin Offshore. Between us, one of us might get it out eventually. So that's our juniors for this weekend. So again, get on down to your local grounds, support your local clubs. Buy a burger, buy chips. If there's a raffle going, buy a raffle ticket. Get down, support the teams, under 6s, under 17s. And cheer on your club. Anything else to add to that, boys?
No, that's it. Just get out there and support the kids.
Support the kids, support the
local
teams.
clubs.
Yep. And scream and cheer when kids make a breakaway. It can be the difference between them wanting to come back.
That's it. So
Cool.
Seniors.
All right. I'll find my place on the run sheet this time.
So we're up to Women's League tag, Sweeney?
Yep, so that's that one. Cool. So on Saturday the 14th, we have Joondalup versus North Beach at Admiral Park. Mandurah versus South Perth at Franklin Offshore Stadium. Ellenbrook versus Alkimos at Weber Reserve. And Willagee versus Fremantle at Weber Reserve. So this...
Kwinana having the bye.
With this Ellenbrook versus Alkimos, the question we've sort of been talking about is why this is not being played in Joondalup, as 2 northern teams are travelling when they're in a closer ground. So if anybody can sort of maybe...
It's bizarre, isn't it? That you're having 2 teams that are north, like quite north, travelling all the way to Willagee. when you could have a much shorter drive to just pop over to Admiral Reserve.
And I think with that, once we get onto the third grade games and reserve and Val Murphy games, there'll be a sort of an obvious connection we can draw based on what previous rounds will look like.
Yeah. Or why can't they go to where we're about to talk to?
Well, let's see. We'll go into that.
Yeah.
So, third grade. That is you, Beatrix. So
that is me.
Yes.
All right, we're on. Okay. Kalamunda versus Kwinana at Hartfield Park, which is topic of conversation. Rockingham versus Mandurah at Franklin Offshore Stadium. Willagee versus Ellenbrook at Weber Reserve. Fremantle versus South Perth at Weber Reserve. And for some strange reason, we have two teams on a bye this week in Alkimos and North Beach.
Yes,
very
Western Australia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess that's the thing, because in keeping the Ellenbrook teams together, obviously Willagee at home, which takes Ellenbrook there, and somehow for some reason taking Alkimos there. Again, we know the draw is complex, and hey, I wouldn't want to do it.
No, I agree with that. Yeah.
I know. For other weeks, the four clubs that have got Val Murphy in thirds but not first have played together, and all four clubs have been together a few times.
Yep.
Maybe it could have been another week for that and just leave the Prem clubs doing their thing, but hey.
Yeah, again, I don't think... There's certainly no knock on anyone putting anything together.
Hey, I couldn't do the draw, I tell you that now.
I couldn't. I'd probably... Yeah. I'd just
you'd have Kwinana playing Kwinana 5 times in a season.
Just... Kwinana playing Kwinana, yeah. Yeah, it was just a bit of clarity on maybe some of the reasons the decisions were made.
But anyway, moving on to Val Murphy.
Moving on.
So we have Joondalup versus North Beach at Admiral Park, Kalamunda versus Kwinana at Hartfield Park, Rockingham versus South Perth at Franklin Offshore Stadium, Alkimos versus Ellenbrook at Weber Reserve, and Willagee versus Fremantle at Ellenbrook at Weber Reserve. I apologise, ladies and gentlemen. I have had a long day. So moving on to
Weber's Shallots.
Women's Premiership, and that's me too. So Friday night, we don't have a live stream game yet, but we think it's the Ellenbrook Fremantle game based on game times we've got at the moment. So Willagee versus Joondalup at Admiral Park, and then Ellenbrook versus Fremantle, we suspect will be the live stream game, but stay tuned to the governing body. They will provide the streaming platform for that, and that's obviously Admiral and Kalamunda have the bye. Yeah. So looking at those games, boys, what do you think? Willagee versus Joondalup.
Beatrix?
Willagee will win. I think they'll win well, and in the other game, I think Fremantle are going to beat Ellenbrook.
Yeah, I think Joondalup's slowly building. I think at Willagee, they've got some star players that shone in the cast tournament. I think Willagee probably slightly too strong, but I reckon it might be a closer game than earlier rounds would suspect, and I think Joondalup might have had a slow start, but might be coming home with a bit of a wet sail.
I think they needed to start hitting their straps last week, Joondalup. They missed a chance to knock off Ellenbrook.
It was a big
under strength.
Yep.
And if you can't beat an under strength Ellenbrook, I don't think you're going to beat a full strength Willagee.
Yeah. Well, and that's it. And again, like if Willagee's get all their troops back on board, I think they'll win. But I think it might be a closer game than we suspect. For me, then I think as well, Ellenbrook Freo. I think Ellenbrook. A lot of players and key players coming off the hype of winning the cast. I think they probably get it done, but I think we're going to be in for 2 really good games of rugby league, and if you can get up to Admiral, get up to Admiral. Long way from us down here in the deep south, but if you're around the north, get down there. Sweeney, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, look, again, I think it's going to be a close one. My tip is for Willagee to win, but I think Joondalup might actually start really quickly and give them a bit of a scare. Again, they're building. They may have taken the lessons they've learned from last week and put them into practice this coming week. And then it'll be, my tip is Freo over Ellenbrook. Again, some people coming off the highs of winning cast. Excuse me. The highs of winning cast. And we'll take that back down to club level and hopefully everybody lifts around them. Again, Admiral Park, get down, support the ladies. And support the club.
All right, men's premiership. We continue a big round of footy at Admiral Park with Joondalup taking on North Beach. We've got Rockingham versus South Perth at Franklin Offshore Stadium, And rounding out the round with Willagee versus Fremantle at Weber Reserve. Where are we going here, boys?
I mean, looking at that Joondalup North Beach game, I think North Beach have been good all year, and it's hard to tip against them. Joondalup's obviously had a couple of moments this year where they've maybe surprised us, but I think North Beach, if they're anywhere near full strength, get the job done and probably get the job done easily this week.
Yeah, well, they get Jeremy Wallace back and Bailey Milner.
Yeah, I mean that's it.
That's
That's some class. So yeah, I think that's probably a fairly straightforward tip, Sweeney.
Yeah, look, I have to go with North Beach over Joondalup at Admiral. I think Rockingham will work really hard in this game.
Joondalup will work hard against
Rockingham versus South Perth.
Oh.
Sorry, North Beach versus Joondalup, but
Yes,
North Beach is the tip. Yeah.
Yes, he's moved on, mate. He's moved on.
Oh.
Quick. Show him.
It's on between.
Just show them. Yeah, in the Rockingham South Perth game, I think Rockingham are going to work incredibly hard on this one. They have been building, as I sort of said at the start. South Perth, though, have been the form team in the competition, and they're incredibly tough to beat. So South Perth is my tip, but I'm happy to be proven wrong on that, and I want to see Rockingham do really well there. And then my tip will be Willagee over Fremantle. Some of the boys coming back for both of those sides after cast, though I think Willagee will still get up. I think they'll still maintain their winning ways. Fremantle maybe dropping off a little bit. Even with the boys coming back, they've seemed to be a little bit off the pace in the last few games.
Yeah, I've got South Perth to win and Fremantle with the upset over Willagee.
Yeah,
Nice.
yeah. I think South Perth, unfortunately, fortunately, as it may be, depending on where you lie, will be too strong for Rockingham. I think Rockingham, like we said, it's important they just keep fighting and giving the young kids game time, giving them experience, and it will pay off in the long run. But I think South Perth for this one. Willagee Freo, honestly, I think it depends who backs. Well, yeah, and that's it. And we don't know what the streaming game is, but I hope this is a streaming game because I think we saw it a few weeks ago. They played and it looked like the result was going one way, the result went the other way.
Yep.
I think back at Weber Reserve, I think it's going to be a pumping crowd. I don't know. I honestly don't know who to tip here, so I'm going to tip a draw. I know I sit on the fence. I might think more about it. Wait till we see team list and check out our Facebook page for when we drop our tips on there. And I promise I'll probably have come up with a tip then, or I might even give you as a score for the draw.
I like that. Yeah, the score for the draw.
Because I don't know. Yeah. I think it depends who laces up.
Nil.
I was going to say 26.
Too defensively good. Too defensively good. Cool. Okay, so we're going to move on to everybody's favourite part of the podcast. This is our local legends thing. Morgz, who have we got this week?
So I think this one's a bit of probably a personal one for the three of us. We're obviously all associated with Kwinana. This person is the team manager for me and Sweeney. I think anyone that's been involved with rugby league will know managing senior men's teams is probably 10 times harder than managing any other team because we're all grown men and we're all useless at managing ourselves. So we need a manager that manages each one of us individually. This person's also the manager for both our under 9 teams, is our vice president, is our secretary, does a whole lot of social media stuff, is at the junior ground setting up from 7 a.m, is doing 1,000 things for the club. So, if you're at Kwinana, you know who I'm talking about, but I'm talking about our Vice President, Nani Emil. Nans is amazing. Nans does so much and has done so much for the club for year on year, the 3 years she's been at the club. Like, I can't speak highly enough of her and what she's brought to the club and just her patience and her effort and willingness to just do what's got to be done to make the Titans grow.
Yep.
Sweeney?
Yeah, look, Nani just reminds me of this old school multi-talented volunteer, the mum of the group, the shoulder if you need it, the telling off when you need it, the head that wears so many hats, and it's still so pleasant to be around, dealing with us week on, week out, get your fees paid, pay for your shorts and socks. This stuff that she shouldn't have to say every week, but does.
Turn up to training, we need you to turn up to training, all that stuff.
And then still does it with a smile, still has time for you on game day, at trainings, will take messages from me during the week about random stuff to do with merchandise. So she's an incredible woman, incredible volunteer for our club at Kwinana. So I'm stoked to have her as our local legend this week.
Yeah, she does it all with a massive smile on her face.
Yeah, and I think that's it. So we're highlighting someone from our club because of what we see week on, week off, day in, day out. And I really put the encouragement. That's when we do this local legend stuff. We've highlighted a lot of players in the past, and that, and mate, players are obviously a very big part of the game. But if you're listening from your club, there's 11 other clubs out there, 12 other clubs, whatever it is. Like highlight your people, like we've just done for our person. Reach out to us, tell us about that person that's setting up the ground, that's running the canteen, that's managing 2 teams, that's coaching teams, that's just doing what they can do to make your club successful. Send us a message on our Facebook page, like Empire Rugby League. If you know one of us boys personally, send us a personal message, whatever it is. Give your people a rap. We will shout them out. That's what we want. We want this section to be highlighting the people that bust their ass without receiving anything in return because they love rugby league and they want to see the game grow. Anything more to add to that, boys?
No, that's pretty much it, mate. I think just on that as well, there is a NRL Community Awards at the moment, so that's another opportunity for you to highlight and shout out the volunteers at your clubs. Make sure you get down and do that for the people that are really making a difference and really, really keep the wheels turning at your club. I think that's it from myself. Beatrix?
No, I think next week we'll be back. We'll not have the dribble as much as we're being told to wrap it up, but Sweeney, finish this off.
Guys, until the next time, remember, train hard, be kind,
and go the Blues.
Up the Blues.
Love rugby.